Hello, everyone, and welcome to the LeanTossup Call of Duty League podcast. It's time, guys. It's time for the NFL entry draft. No, just kidding. It's time for Major 3. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, CDLMetrics. But yeah, as I just said, day 1 of Major 3 is the same day as the NFL entry draft.
Yeah, exciting stuff. Major 2 landed on the first weekend of March Madness. So that was a bit unfortunate because March Madness takes over the whole day. But this weekend, should be a lot of fun if you're an NFL fan and you follow the draft. We'll have probably 30 hours of draft coverage from Thursday through Saturday. And yeah, the good news is Thursday and Friday NFL draft coverage starts pretty late. So we'll be able to watch some CDL matches earlier in the day, and then hopefully that'll transition into draft coverage late at night. So yeah, full slate of fun for this weekend. Super excited to talk Major 3. I think you can make a case this is the most intriguing major we've had so far this year, and kind of crazy we're already here. I feel like we blinked and the Major 3 qualifiers were over, in part because each team only played 5. But yeah, 3 weeks of qualifiers, and here we are, Major 3. I'm ready to talk about it.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited for it as well. Last week, we both actually had a pretty good week last week. We both went 2-1. FaZe decided not to beat Optic game 1. I think they got crushed, actually. I think Optic dominated them in map 1, that map 1 hardpoint, but then they continued 3 straight sweep. Cloud9 kept it close against Vancouver, but did not pull out the win. And Miami, the minus 150, I think, was like basically the safest bet of the weekend. Like, it was a pretty dominant 3-1. It wasn't particularly close. Whatever, Minnesota was competitive, but like not priced to minus 150. That should have been much closer, like minus 200, I think. Pretty clear. And yeah, you had a pretty good week as well. Go ahead and say what you found there.
Yeah, so I tried the bully Cloud9 strategy, and funny enough, our number 2 picks went head-to-head, so someone had to lose that, and unfortunately that was me. Vancouver did get the win, but yeah, it took them too long to get there. So yeah, I'd say that was actually like pretty comfortable Cloud9 cover, considering they won map 1 and map 3, and map 2 was also a round 11, so if that flips, it could have been a Cloud9 sweep, but some close maps here and there, but Vancouver pulled it out at the end. So yeah, props to you for getting that one. But yeah, I'm really happy with my other picks. Boston minus 1.5 versus Cloud9 in the game on the previous day. And yeah, sure enough, Boston came out and took care of business pretty easily. So that was a toss-up match. I think it was minus 120 either way. So I decided to take Boston with the spread, and it paid off big time. And then, yeah, I was pretty bold and pretty adamant that Vegas plus 2.5 at even money was good value. And sure enough, map 1, they only won map 1, but they did so extremely comfortably. Part of the argument was just that FaZe had been a little shaky in hardpoint specifically, but throughout the qualifier period going into that. And Vegas, I just think the markets are slowly catching up to where Vegas should be power ranked in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, FaZe ultimately pulled it out, but map 4 was also pretty close. Like, we weren't that far away from a map 5, actually, in that series, as crazy as it is. But yeah, interesting results from last weekend, and we have a very interesting bracket to talk about going into this weekend as well.
Yeah, I'm interested for that as well. Combined model plays were pretty good, but not amazing. Had a couple of issues there, but nothing too crazy, though. Was good on Toronto. Didn't do well with Cloud9 map 3 and LEG map 3, but the Thieves map 2, it got that. Cloud9 didn't get the money line, but got the plus 1.5 in the map 3. LEG map 1, Toronto map 2, and then the FaZe money line, but not the minus 2.5. And then Boston money line, but then not the minus 1.5. Map 1, map 2, but then FaZe map 2 against Optic, it definitely got that. So basically breaking even on those for the week. But we went 2-1 on the other one, so that's okay. CDL points contest update. Now, this one is fascinating. I've taken a look at this. And look at the top 3. The top 3 are separated by 15 points. And it's probably the most frequent guest on this podcast, Doug Levy. He's the number 1. And then closely behind is you. And then I am only 5 points behind you. Not sure exactly what I think that's from. The 5 points is from Surge getting second place at the major, whatever. It doesn't really matter, but yeah, like, it's so close. Like, literally, it is you cannot get closer than this. And again, we still have this major and we still have the final thing. But it's like the three of us and then the person who has the same picks as me and then a 70-point gap. And then it just keeps getting, then it's just further and further away. So I will say that it is really cool that the three of us have pretty different picks, right? Okay, two of us have phase, two of us have ultra at the top. But outside of that, everything is different. Actually, two of us have, the top picks are similar. But outside of that, we all went in very different directions with how we stacked it, and we're all 1, 2, and 3. Pretty impressed with that. I think it's cool that like we do this, and obviously we have our fans, and I will say it's cool that the three of us are 1, 2, and 3 there.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I was just punching in the numbers this past weekend to see where things shook out. I knew I had a very good qualifier period. I went back and looked, and I almost got as many points as it's possible for the 4 teams that I have. The one where I slipped up was Boston losing to Minnesota. But other than that, like either my teams played each other and 10 points were guaranteed, or my teams came through against teams I didn't have on my roster. So I moved up just a little, but again, it's qualifiers, so there's only 10 points at a time you're getting. We'll get a lot more coming in this weekend. But yeah, no, you make a good point. The top 4, and even if you go down to Ken and Wah below us, like they're 70 points, 90 points back of Doug. But for the most part, we have the same set of 5 or 6 teams. The rough thing if you're Ken or if you're Wah is that in order to make ground on the guys ahead of you, you have Vegas Falcons, right? That's your differentiator. The good news is Vegas look much improved and could easily end the season with 40, 50, 60 points. That wouldn't shock me, but you need that to happen, or maybe even more, and then all your other stuff to fall in line. But yeah, really fascinating stuff. Doug is obviously sitting atop. He's got Carolina on his team, which right now looks like a great pick. They had the roster move last weekend, didn't look so great against Thieves. We'll see how that goes moving forward. I've got Boston as my differentiator among the top teams. And then, you in the real PD Gaming, Vancouver Surge, is coming in very strong as your 3rd pick. So, I'm sure this will shake up quite a bit as we get through Sunday here. But, really interested to see how it plays out considering we have so many teams near the top all vying for that first place finish.
Yeah, it's interesting. We'll have to see, but again, when you're looking at a 15-point difference between first and fourth, third and fourth, it's very close there. It's like, again, I think literally if Ultra, actually I don't know because Doug has Thieves, because Ultra played Thieves. If Thieves had won, I would be second, and I would be 5 back. I'd be 5 back. That's the difference. Like, that's how close this is, right? It's one match here or there it's the ball game. So that's the thing. So this is where it's like, if last major, one of the reasons why I think I was first after last major, if I remember correctly. The reason was, and this is how you get points in this game, is if you get, like, 3 of my teams were 1, 2, and 3 at the major. That's a massive source of points. Now, obviously, you have FaZe and Doug has Thieves, but if you have 1, 2, and 3, that gets you a lot of points there. The thing, like, you guys are definitely rooting for Ultra, and you need Ultra to make it to Sunday is what you need. You desperately need Ultra. You need Ultra to make it to Sunday, preferably beating Surge. That would be like the best outcome for you guys would be like Ultra beating Surge, and then it's okay. Robert's
Surge would not be great for us. I think we'd prefer if Toronto beat FaZe, if it's me, or if it's Toronto over Thieves. Yeah. Or our 3 or 4. The interesting thing, Doug and I, and you, we all have teams that are starting in the winner's bracket, and that's huge. And especially so for Doug and I, if you have 4 teams, like, I think we've had Major 1 and Major 2 where at least one of our teams has been in loser's bracket. So to have all 4 in there is great. Unfortunately, Doug has actually 2 pairings. So Thieves play Ravens round 1 and Ultra play Heretics round 1. I also have that. So we're guaranteed to send someone, or in Doug's case, 2 teams down into loser's bracket. But again, that means you're guaranteed to bank some decent points at the very least. And ideally, those teams are going to go down to loser's bracket and start a little run anyway. So there's a million different ways this could play out, but really excited that it's this close and that Doug didn't just pull away with it after Major 1 or whatever it was, and that we've caught up and have made this, a fun race to follow for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting finale here on that for sure. Moving on to league news, here is a bracket, and as you just mentioned, there you go. So yeah, I have Surge versus FaZe facing off in round one. Oh, 1 second. I have Surge versus FaZe in round one, and then I have Thieves Ravens. So again, you guys are rooting for Ravens there. If Ravens were to knock off Thieves, that would be very helpful. But you also, for you personally, you have Ultra and Heretics, so you're getting hit by that one. But again, we're starting the winners bracket, but we have some games where we're going up against ourselves, so it's a bit iffy on that. But again, those are 4 really good games. We're going to talk about them in a minute, but like all 4 of those are pretty good games. Those are, I think, pretty clearly the top 8 teams. You can maybe make an argument for Falcons should be in there, but maybe not, right? There's an argument they should be there, but I think it's very clear those are the top 8 teams.
Yeah, agree. And we'll get to the Major 3 qualifiers in a second and how those shook out. We did have a lot of ties, much to no one's surprise, with only playing 5 qualifiers, but there wasn't really a big debate around the 8 versus 9 seed, if any team got the short end of the stick or anything. The 8 seed was Carolina. They had 2 wins. Optic was the 7 with 2 wins. But then when you went down to the 9 seed, which is Rocker, they only banked 1, I'm pretty sure, as did the 10 and the 11 seed. Yeah, I just assumed we'd have maybe 2 or 3 teams that all sat at 2 wins, and then they'd be clustered around the 8 and 9 seed, but thankfully it was a pretty clean break among those top 8 versus the bottom 4. Yeah, I think some of those teams in losers bracket, though, they are landmines potentially for these teams that start in the upper bracket, just based on that. I think Rocker are still a decent team. Like, if it's Ravens that come down and play them, I would not be shocked at all if Rocker get that win. The way Vegas is playing right now, if they were to see Boston or Optic, they already beat Optic, we know that. But if it's Boston, like, sure, they could beat Boston. They almost did just last week, and they definitely beat Optic. I remember that happening. So yeah, these losers bracket games on Friday, I think, are pretty intriguing. LAG maybe not so much in their matchup, but you can make a case for Cloud9, even though they've been slumping. But yeah, I'd say this is maybe the most open we've had a major for, just in terms of who is going to win. You can make a case for several teams. And you can even make a case for several of the losers bracket teams potentially going on a nice little run. I don't know about any of those teams winning the thing, but we could have some very interesting results by the time Sunday is over. So yeah, very excited to see how this plays out. I'm super, super excited for Major 3. Probably more excited than I was for Major 1 or Major 2. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah. So just a quick recap here. This was what our model had in terms of wins over expectation. Basically, this is comparing what we had and what the end result was. So we pretty much nailed Thieves. Good job for us on that. And for Boston and Vancouver, we were a bit low on them. They overperformed expectations by about a 1.5 there for Boston. Massively under on Miami and on Ultra. But that difference was made up by FaZe. We actually had FaZe a lot higher than they were. Texas, Carolina, those are pretty good. Minnesota, we overestimated. Vegas, I nailed that one. That's pretty cool. And Cloud9, we massively overestimated Cloud9, and also LAG a little bit to some extent. But to be fair, we'll call the LAG one a little bit, basically make up for Vegas there. But yeah, overall pretty good. This is pretty noisy. This is far from an exact science, but honestly, a pretty good record there for Major 3.
Yeah, agree. For the most part, we were within 1 game or 1 win for each of the teams. The deltas you see next to our names are, on average, what we were off by for each team. So yeah, both of us right around 1 win exact. And yeah, a couple teams we were pretty spot on with. You mentioned them. Thieves, it doesn't get much more accurate than that. Optic, we were pretty close on. Like, you especially, you were like right at 2 wins. I was a touch above that. Carolina, we were thinking would hover between 2 and 3 wins. That's where they ended up. Vegas and LAG, I mean, we were within I'd say a half a win for those. I guess LAG, we were more closer to 1 win than 0. But yeah, some surprising results. Like, all of those teams, the 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 seed, all got to 4 wins. That's pretty crazy when you think about it, to have that many teams with that many wins. No one got to 5 wins, and like it's just very concentrated, all of those wins into those 5 teams. Yeah, FaZe being the 6th seed was unexpected. We thought they'd be the 1 or the 2 seed, as I would guess most people thought. But yeah, the big one here is Miami. We just had data based on what they had done so far this season without Super in the lineup, and both of us projected Miami to be in that losers bracket, like 9 seed, 10 seed probably. And sure enough, Super is awesome. Miami way overperforms, and yeah, they get the 4 seed because of that. Yeah, so just, fascinating to see how accurate we were in some spots and how, some things are hard to predict, especially roster changes this late in the ball game. Pretty happy with where we stood overall, and we'll have more of these coming up for Major 4 in just 1 week's time.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, I mean, it's cool that we're doing this now. I really like it, and it's a nice expectation setter, and it's not half bad for the results at the end, so I wish Bet365 brings back the expected wins markets, but maybe for another time. Match previews. We got 4 today, or tonight. Carolina versus Thieves. Thieves minus 2,500 on the money line. Carolina plus 800. Thieves minus 2.5, minus 125. Ravens plus 2.5, minus 110. Thieves a 56.5 point favorite in the hard point, 1.5 round favorite in the search, and then no spread in the control because Thieves is minus 2,000 in the control. We're pretty much on market on this. My model weirdly likes Ravens. Ravens a little bit in the hard point, but like slightly, not much. Probably more of a spread play than an actual to win it play. But yeah, I'm not seeing a lot of value here. I did actually bet Ravens spread, hard point spread last time when I played FaZe, just as last weekend. Got burned by that, so I'm not touching that again. I'm probably just going to sit back and watch this one. What do you have here?
Yeah, so my model very much likes Ravens, and I very much don't. And again, my model is based on the entire body of work these teams have done so far this season, and we've seen Ravens match up with these guys a lot, and it's been a lot of bad for them. And specifically last week, right, this was the last match we saw on Sunday. This was the most recent match, and then boom, we're getting it again on Thursday. Ravens with their new lineup couldn't get a map win. Wasn't particularly close in any map. Let me pull up the results here from last week. 250 to 134, map 1. That's a blowout. 6-2, map 2, and 3-0 in map 3. And that was a speed run, basically, for Thieves. And, so I'm just going to stay away for this. This price got super inflated based off of last week's results, as it should. But just looking at last week, Carolina was plus 350 against these guys. And now they've ballooned up to 8-1 odds. And I think it's justifiable. Thieves looked amazing. And when you look at Thieves' body of work from just Major 3 qualifiers, they look incredible. They were very close to being a 5-0 team. Their only loss was to a very good Toronto Ultra team in a Game 5. So they almost got that one done. And their other 4 matches, LA Thieves 3-0'd everybody. And a lot of those were blowouts. And some of those were against good teams. It was just a very impressive 5-game stretch for Thieves. Carolina, they looked okay with their old lineup. And then, they looked themselves, I would say, with Vivid in the lineup. And then they take him out for one match. It didn't go their way. I don't want to overreact to just that one match. But the fact that it was against these guys is, it's just worrisome for me. Have the prices adjusted too much, maybe, in favor of Thieves? You can make that case where it's maybe on LAN things will be different. It's another week for Ravens to practice with this current lineup. I tend to think which side of the plus 2.5 or minus 2.5 would I rather have. I do think I'd rather have Ravens plus 2.5 at minus 110. I just don't know how much else they're going to give me. Can they push it to a Game 5? Maybe. That's a tall task, I think, for these guys. If they do, they're very live to win. We know they're a pretty solid search team, but it's just tricky to go that far since we've only seen this team for one match. And Thieves are just nuclear hot right now. So it's a stay away for me. I think you can talk me into the Ravens, but I just think this weekend shakes out really well for the Thieves. And specifically, to get a match like this on Thursday, you just played these guys. You're on a roll. Now, we've had some 1 seeds that have lost their opening match in the first couple majors, so maybe this is the same thing where the 1 seed falls flat to everyone's surprise, but I tend to think this will be a 1 seed that takes care of business relatively easily. Yeah, stay away from me. And yeah, if you show up late on Thursday and you don't catch this first match, I wouldn't worry too much about it because it's likely a Thieves 3-1 or a 3-0. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I agree. It's probably a Thieves 3-0 or 3-1. Match number 2. This one could be pretty good here. Surge versus FaZe minus 275 on the money line. Surge plus 200. Surge plus 1.5 minus 138. FaZe minus 1.5 plus 100. FaZe 14.5 point favorites in the hardpoint. 1.5 round favorites in the search. And 1.5 round favorites in the control. My model likes Vancouver here a little bit. It's got a little bit of value on that plus 1.5. Likes them in map 1. Thinks they're closer to 60% favorite in map 1. But pulls back just a little bit there on the map 2, and especially in the map 3. Map 3 is about even with the market. I've personally got a little bit of value on Vancouver money line here, but not enough to play the money line, but definitely enough to play the plus 1.5 and the hard point here. What do you see in this one? Do you see any value here, or are you going to stay away from this one?
Yeah. So my model is pretty indifferent on this one specifically. I guess it has a smidge of value on FaZe in map 2 specifically, and like the tiniest of edges on Vancouver in map 1. But yeah, I really like Vancouver in this spot, and it's been a trend of mine the last couple weeks to fade Atlanta FaZe, and their results last week were good. They got 2 wins. They were expected to get 2 wins. They played Vegas. They played Optic. 3-1 both of those teams. They dropped the map 1 hardpoint against both of those teams. And right now, Vegas and Optic, I wouldn't say are like the best hardpoint teams in the league. They're maybe league average. And FaZe they did that in their previous series too, dropping hardpoints. And even the ones they won last week were very close. A 9-point win against Vegas, a 6-point win against Optic. Like, those are straight up coin flips if you're winning by that little of margin. So yeah, FaZe have been shaky in hardpoint over the last few weeks. That does worry me. Their search and control have been fine. Like, I still expect them to win those game modes versus Surge. And I think that's the difference here is, right, like, I think the likeliest outcome is these teams will split hardpoints. They'll split 2 searches. Who wins the control? I have more faith in FaZe at this point, but I don't know if FaZe are good enough to split 2 hardpoints against a team like Vancouver Surge. Like, they are a good test for sure. So this is, you can make an argument these are 2 top 3 teams meeting in round 1. And just based on what they've done the last few weeks, I think FaZe should be a small favorite. Maybe make it a coin flip. And I know the books are never going to do that with an Atlanta FaZe team, but minus 275 to win is just too steep for me. Like, I'd much prefer to have Vancouver to win at plus 200 or to even force the map 5 at minus 138. Like I said, with FaZe, like, hardpoint has been a worry. So Surge can get that done by covering the spread with 2 hardpoint wins if they can. So yeah, 2 teams that are going in the opposite direction right now. FaZe, I think, will still be fine. I think they're going through a small, rough patch right now. They can easily flip that going into a LAN tournament like we have this weekend. But yeah, I expect Vancouver Surge to be very competitive with these guys and at least push it to that game 5. Don't be shocked if Surge end up winning this series. That's all I'll say. But the good news for these teams is they have a very soft landing should they go into the losers bracket, because I believe they play Cloud9, and Cloud9 have been rough lately. Even if you lose, you're probably going to go on a nice losers bracket run, but the winner of this is a huge win if you can get it, and I think Surge are more than capable of doing that.
Yeah. Moving on to match 3, Ultra versus Heretics. Toronto minus 225 on the money line, Miami plus 162. Ultra minus 1.5 plus 100, Miami plus 1.5 minus 138. Ultra minus 17.5 point favorites in the hard point, 1.5 round favorites in the search, and then 1.5 round favorites in the control. This one is weird. I'd love to be betting Miami here. I'd absolutely love Miami plus 1.5, but the model doesn't like it. The model kind of likes Toronto a little bit on the money line, but not in the minus 1.5. It likes Miami in the hard point, so a hard point bet there of the plus 15.5 map 1, that's a pretty fair bet. but that might just be a get in and get out match, right? Like it doesn't like any of the other Miami spreads in here. Yeah, I love Miami, but like the result was the fact that we just saw it. This match just happened. Toronto won 3-1. Could they force a game 5? Sure, but I lean the same thing's going to happen again.
Yeah, this is interesting. We did just see this. I was looking at the numbers from last weekend to see how they changed going into this weekend. So the funny thing is the money line price is the exact same. Toronto are minus 225 this week. They were last week. Their minus 1.5 number has gotten worse, I guess you'd say, in terms of a price. They were plus 120 a week ago, now even money. And that makes sense. They just 3-1'd Miami, so that's good evidence that they could cover that spread again. Yeah, and then the game mode odds, map 1, Toronto was minus 125. They're now minus 163 after winning both last weekend. The map 1 was a 10-point win, so that very well could have gone either way. The map 4 was more convincing, so that was good to see for Toronto. Map 2, Toronto's odds have gotten worse. That was the one game they lost last weekend. It was around 11, so again, another map that was very close. That did not go in Toronto's favor. And then map 3 is interesting because last week, Toronto minus 188. This week, minus 163 after a 3-1 victory against these guys a week ago. So a convincing win in control. Anytime you're winning in round 4 or round 3, that's pretty impressive in that game mode. So odd that the price on that dropped. I think you can make a case. Toronto map 3 at minus 163 is good value. Your model seems to say that. My model seems to say that. But at the end of the day, like, I do wonder if the result from last weekend makes Miami a good sort of buy low candidate. Miami still had a very impressive qualifier period. This was their only loss, was to Toronto Ultra last weekend. Otherwise, they had 4 wins, some that were a little close, some that were pretty impressive. But yeah, I don't know. I think I'd rather take Miami's moneyline price or their plus 1.5 than Ultras. And I know that's going against my model, but I just think the prices maybe have shifted too much. I really think these teams are close in terms of just like power ranking. Like I think Toronto is probably the better team. They proved that last weekend. They had wins over FaZe and Thieves this qualifier period. Like Toronto's wins and their win over Miami is good indicators that they are probably the better team. But I just wonder if the market has stretched this out a little tiny bit too much for Toronto Ultra. So yeah, mostly a stay away for me, but I do think Miami maybe put up a little better of a fight going into this weekend and maybe even win. That is totally on the table for Miami to get the win in this spot. So one other interesting thing to note is that Miami are the 4 seed, Toronto are the 5 seed. So I am pretty confident in this, that there is no coin flip to determine Team A and Team B in the major. It just goes off of seeding. Like whoever is the higher seed, you can pick if you're Team A and Team B for the veto process. And it's just weird that it played out with the tiebreaker procedures. Even though Toronto beat Miami and have identical records, Miami had a better map win percentage over the course of the qualifier period. So they get the veto preferences to start off. I don't know if that's worth noting, but just an interesting nugget. And one good reason why maybe let's push it back up to 7 qualifiers instead of 5. But yeah, I think Miami can put up a fight and maybe even pull off an upset from what we saw last weekend. So this should be a really good match. Very excited to see how this plays out. And the winner will probably get Thieves in round 2 should Thieves win. So that matchup as well could be very fun. Yeah, very excited to see this one.
Yeah, I agree with that. This one, I think it'll be interesting to see. I just don't know if I want to take a side in it, at least on the map spreads. Mm-hmm. Final match for round 1 winners bracket: Optic versus Boston. Optic minus 150 on the money line. Boston plus 110. Optic minus 1.5 plus 150. Boston plus 1.5 minus 200. Optic 7.5 point favorites in the hard point. 1.5 round favorites in the search, and 1.5 round favorites in the control. And something very interesting about this game in our model, both our models are saying no. They're like, no, that's not a thing. It's so funny because I was like, when I was entering in the data, I was like, hey, my model has Boston as a pretty sizable favorite here. I wonder if your model does too, and your model is right there with me. Why is Optic the favorite here? I'll
I
say
have
why I
no
think, and then I'll
clue.
yeah, I'll
Yeah.
say why I think it is, and then I'll let you go on it. I think that they beat FaZe in a hard point, and they're like, oh yeah, Optic is good at hard point, and then they're gonna beat Boston. I don't know. That's the closest I get is, oh, they looked okay versus FaZe. But the thing is, as we've just discussed, FaZe's hard point is a bit soft. It's been quite soft.
Yeah.
I've made quite a lot of money betting against FaZe's hard points. And you're telling me that that Optic, probably one of the worst teams in the league, they were able to take one hard point away from FaZe, and you're now like, oh, they're back. They're gonna beat Boston. I don't buy it. What do you think in this one?
Full agreement. I was shocked when I saw these prices initially, and they've only gotten worse or better. I don't know how to phrase it. Like Optic have become a bigger favorite somehow over the course of one day. Last I checked, I think Optic was like minus 130 or 40. Now they're minus 150 to win. I don't get it. I don't get it. Yeah, because I think Boston was even money, and now they're plus 110. So small moves, but when the numbers are close to even money, any sort of movement is notable. And yeah, I don't get it at all. Boston have been the better team. When you look at these last 3 weeks, one team has gone 4-1, and their only loss was to Minnesota. That's not a great loss, but that went all the way to a Game 5 round 11. So Boston were that close to being 5-0. Now, the thing with Boston is they had some other series that they were on the right end of that. Like just last weekend, their series against Vegas, it was a reverse sweep, Game 5 round 11 that they got. So Boston were 4-1, but maybe should have been 3-2 when you look at their overall map record and who they played. They didn't have the toughest strength of schedule for that qualifier period. But Optic were 2-3. They've lost their last three. Neither of their wins were that impressive early in the qualifier period. And yeah, you mentioned their series against FaZe from just on Sunday. And I mean, it was pretty close. Like you can make a case that Optic at least should have been able to force that Game 5.
Game 5.
If not win, if not just win in 4 games. Like they dominated in map 1 hardpoint. But again, FaZe hardpoint has been lately. It hasn't been bad, but they haven't been their usual selves. FaZe get a round 11 win in Search and Destroy. Again, round 11s, those can go either way. If Optic are to get that, Optic are sitting right up 2-0 going into the break. Control was an easy FaZe win, and then FaZe win by 6 on Vault in map 4. Like, those are 2 really tough losses, map 2 and map 4 for Optic. So, like, you're right. They were right there with FaZe. That's about as impressive of a 1-3 loss as you can have. But I don't know. Like, you think back on who both of these teams have played. I think their only common opponent for this 5-game stretch, I suppose they both played Minnesota, so that's the funny thing. They both have played Minnesota. Texas won against Minnesota a few weeks ago. Boston lost in that Game 5, Round 11. They both also played Vegas, and I think this is a good measuring stick for these teams. And we know who lost to Vegas and who didn't. Now, Boston barely beat them when you look back on their match from last weekend, but Optic got 3-1, and that wasn't even particularly close. It could have been a sweep. And Vegas isn't what they had. Like, they are a different team now, but that is a good comparison. If you look at these teams on just the course of the season, like, Boston's numbers are better. Not by much, but I just have so much more faith in Boston to win this series than I do Optic. Now, to me, that means it's like a 60-40 in favor of Boston. So, yeah, very easy. Optic could definitely win this match. But when the team that should be a 60% favorite is plus 110 to win, it's just too easy. I'm just so surprised by where this price is. Yeah, I don't know. The funny thing is, too, whoever loses this gets Vegas Falcons in the losers bracket. So either Optic have to play the Vegas Falcons, who they just lost to in a 3-1, could have been a 3-0, or Boston meet them again for the second week in a row. and they, barely pulled that one out. Yeah, fascinated to watch this match. I feel like the matches on Thursday just get better and better as we go on during the day. And to close with this one, I think, is truly special. So, yeah, I'm really hoping Boston come through. They should be favorites. Not huge favorites, but I just have so much more faith in them. Their control was perfect in the Major 3 qualifiers. That is huge for them because before this, their control was just horrible. And now they look like a very competitive team in that mode. Their hardpoint has been nice. Optics has been okay. And Search is pretty much a toss-up, I think. So, yeah, breach all day in this spot. Don't let me down, Boston. I've been on you all year. Please don't trip up in this spot. I also need you for the CDL points contest. That would be very helpful if you can win this, Boston.
One more thing I will say about this is because we talk about the difference here between FaZe and Optic was competitive with FaZe. And I think if you are a particular kind of, if you think that FaZe is one of the best teams, and we're going to talk about the futures in a minute, and that kind of implies that FaZe is one of the top teams, or if not the best team, then you look at that and you say, no, Optic was very competitive against FaZe. FaZe is the best team, therefore, and to be fair, FaZe has won the last 2 majors, right? It's a very easy argument to make that FaZe is the best team in the league, and Optic was competitive against them, therefore Optic is back. And I think that the problem here, and the key difference between where we are and where everybody else is on this, is literally just the fact that we have FaZe lower. Our models quickly pick up on the fact that FaZe's hardpoint is a lot weaker than it has been. And because it's picking up on that, it's downgrading Optic's win against, strength against FaZe there. And because of that's where we're at right now. So I think that might be the reason why we have very different numbers here. And I suspect that might be the difference between us and the books there. But we'll have to see. I'm 100% on Boston on this one, 100%. So we'll go from there and see. Next up, we have this one. This seems about right. I wouldn't want to touch this at all. This is a play on either FaZe or Surge. I don't know if I could stomach a Cloud9 play here. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. So this is loser's bracket. The first match on Friday will be Cloud9 versus the loser of FaZe and Surge. And yeah, best of luck if you're Cloud9. That is a brutal way that played out for Cloud9. They already had a bad qualifier period. Their search has come back to earth, and their hardpoint and control hasn't kept up with those losses. Yeah, but man, you're going to get a top 3 team for all intents and purposes dropping down to loser's bracket. Yeah, I think whoever it is going to be about an 80% favorite to win. That lines up perfectly with minus 400, which is Cloud9's price to be eliminated in round 1. So that is, again, with these losers bracket hypothetical matches, that minus 400 is playable right now. You can take Cloud9 minus 400 to be eliminated in round 1. I think that's pretty fair, so if you're interested in that, go for it. I would prefer to have that. If these are the prices that come out for this match on Friday, I think I'd rather have that better team at minus 400, or I'd probably prefer the spread, if anything, but yeah, I think these prices are pretty spot on. Cloud9 have a huge hill to climb in this match. Specifically, can they get it done? Sure, they could. It would be a big surprise, though. I just think FaZe and Surge are they're just so much better equipped. Even a struggling FaZe, if this is FaZe, and it's a iffy hardpoint team in FaZe, like Cloud9's hardpoint, I just don't think can keep up right now. Yeah, I think this will be a relatively quick series. I've been out on Cloud9 for a while now. I don't see that changing anytime soon. Yeah, they're just going to have to prove me wrong because I think they're going to struggle in this one for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Next up, this one is one I'd be more interested in the underdog here. So the implied price is roughly around plus 150 for Vegas. I'd be definitely interested in that. I think my model would have value on Vegas in that one. I think, especially if it's Optic, especially if Boston were to beat Optic, I think, I don't know about Boston, but I could definitely see Vegas could definitely beat Optic. I'm not sure about Boston, but yeah, Vegas. And the thing is, think about it, this is now a Vegas team that's won their first ever points. They've won their first ever game. They're probably going to want to win their first ever major match. This is the thing. They have a shot here. I think they're not going to try. They're not going to miss out that opportunity. They know they didn't have the easiest schedule for the major. They had a lot. It was a pretty difficult schedule, to be fair. this is their time to make some points. If they want to even have a chance at getting to champs, they've got to do something here. Now, to be fair, some teams, cough cough LAG, are making this relatively easy for them to pass them. They're only 20 points ahead of them, but they still got to do that. And the step to getting that, like if you can get a win here and then maybe move forward into the losers bracket one more round, then there's going to be a path where okay, you can sneak into 11th, maybe you can get into 10th, right? There's a path here where you could say, hey, if we can win 3 matches in our next qualifier, and maybe we can get into winners bracket or something, maybe. So if we get to like winners round 2, then we make champs. There's a couple of lines here where it's, hey, maybe there's a chance for them. So Vegas is gonna have a ton of motivation here. I think watch out for them in this loser bracket match.
Yeah, this price is, I would agree, is very intriguing. And I was curious. I looked at last Sunday, Boston played Vegas. They barely won. Boston was a minus 200 favorite. Vegas was plus 150 on the money line. Vegas covered the plus 1.5 at minus 163. Yeah, they won map 1 and map 2. They were even in plus 120 in those. Like Vegas is a competitive team now. Like it's point blank. Like if you're power ranking Vegas right now, if you're just saying, okay, who's the best team? Like number 1 is favored over every other team. Number 2 is favored over every other team except number 1. I think Vegas fall in that like 8th or 9th right now. Like they look very competitive. And I agree. I think the 10 seed is like pretty indicative of their tough schedule that they had. If they had a nicer schedule for this split, maybe they would have snuck in as the 8 seed or the 7 seed or something like that. But they had a gauntlet and they put up a fight. And I mean, they got a win on the board and earned a 10 seed. Like they had a better map win percentage than Cloud9, who were the 11 seed. So yeah, Vegas are highly competitive. I think plus 150, considering what we saw against Boston last week, and Vegas were this close to winning that, plus 150 seems like a good price against Boston, and it would be a great price against Optic as well, considering that they beat them pretty easily a couple weeks ago. So I am curious to see how much this moves from Thursday to Friday. And again, this is just a hypothetical matchup, but like I would not at all take Vegas minus 200 to be eliminated in round 1. I think they're going to put up a good fight. How far can they get? That's another question. Like in order to make champs, I think a good sort of like bar to set for Vegas, and it's a huge ask. Like I'd say probably like 99% to miss champs. But if you can make Sunday somehow at this major and at Major 4, maybe you can find your way sneaking in. You got to pass that 100-point mark. Probably comfortable. Like you're probably going to need more than just that. So this major, right, that means you got to win 4 straight. Could it happen? Sure, but they very easily could lose this opening match against Optic or Boston. So is it possible? Yes, but it's going to take a lot to get there. Their Major 4 qualifier period is going to have to be solid, probably start in winner's bracket, and then navigate through that to make it to Sunday in that major. But let's worry about what we have this weekend. But I think they don't have to worry much. I think they're going to be super live to win this series no matter who it is. Yeah, interested to take Vegas if it is plus 150 or higher. I don't think it would get higher, but yeah, just based on what we've seen, they're legit now. They're not good, but like they're a legit CDL team, and that is a huge bump up from where they were. So yeah, I'm a Vegas Falcons fanboy. That's all I can say.
Third match on Friday, LAG versus loser of Toronto, Miami. Yeah, I think those are pretty much interchangeable. I think obviously you have slightly better odds against Miami, but I wouldn't want to play Miami, and I also wouldn't want to play Toronto either. Yeah, I don't think you want to play this one. I don't think this is not going to be a fun game if you're an LAG fan.
Agree. Yeah. I actually think the minus 400 is not bad if you wanted to take that now. Just last week, Saturday, match 3 was LAG versus Toronto. Those prices were LAG 6-1 on the money line, plus 2.5 was minus 175. And they did cover that. They actually completely annihilated Toronto in that map 1. Map 2 was also a round 11. Map 3 was a round 5. So they kept some maps close. They were able to get a map win, but at the end of the day, they weren't that close to winning the series. So yeah, if the books are saying, let's assume this is Toronto versus LAG, if it is minus 400 plus 275, like that just does not mesh with what we saw a week ago with minus 1200 plus 600. Yeah, I feel like minus 400 isn't a bad price to pay right now. Now it could be Miami as well, and my whole thing with Miami is, I don't know, like they're maybe just as good as Toronto, maybe a touch worse, but not by much. So yeah, I think whoever is the loser of that game is just going to roll right through LAG like they're nothing. So yeah, I don't know. I'd probably have to see LAG at, again, the plus 600 number, plus 800, and then we can maybe have a conversation. But they've been so rough lately. It's tough to take them at any price.
Yeah. Next up is Minnesota versus the loser of Carolina or Thieves. Again, the thing is, I get why it's plus 162 seems a little generous for Minnesota there. The thing is, like, Thieves and Carolina, I guess it's basically penciling in Thieves winning and then that being Carolina. But Carolina has been very good at taking care of business against the non-top teams. The second they go up against a top team, they have a problem. But when they're not going up against a top team, they always take care of business and get it done pretty quick. So I'd be on Carolina here. If it's Carolina, obviously if it's Thieves, but if it's Carolina here, I'd be on Carolina.
Yeah, this one's tricky just because the prices would vary so much based on who comes down from the winner's bracket. If it's Thieves, yeah, you would love minus 225 versus Rocker, but very likely to be Carolina. If those are the prices, I actually think I'd be interested in Minnesota. Minnesota 1-4 in this qualifier split, but maybe some bad luck. They had a couple series absolutely slip away from them. Now, their one win was also a very close one, but to my larger point, if they're going the distance against a lot of these teams, including a Carolina Royal Ravens, like, why couldn't they beat them? Maybe it's just a string of bad luck. Maybe it's them just trying to figure out how to play with Kenny, and maybe it's still some Kenny slumping that hasn't been great, but I don't know. Like, I still think Minnesota are a solid team. It's unfortunate that they got the 9 seed, but yeah, win 2 qualifiers and you're probably good there. So these teams played a couple weeks ago. Carolina were able to win it in a game 5, but Minnesota was up 2-1. They lost the map 4 by 6. Then they lost in a round 11. What's new? That's what Minnesota does. They go to a round 11 all the time, and maybe they win them, maybe they lose them. So if it is Carolina and the price stays at plus 162 for Minnesota to win, I think I'd prefer that. Carolina have that new team, and all we're going to know is that they lost to Thieves last week, and they lost to Thieves on Thursday, probably by a lot, and who knows how Carolina will look against an easier opponent like Minnesota. I just think, like, with all of those unknowns and the fact that they played a very close series a couple weeks ago, Minnesota should that should basically be a coin flip in my opinion. Maybe you give Carolina a slight edge, maybe you make them like minus 150, something like that. But if they're anywhere close to minus 225 against Rocker, I think I'd strongly prefer Minnesota in that spot. So that's probably the most intriguing Friday losers bracket match that we'll get. But I just want to caveat with Minnesota, not a great qualifier split, but man, they were close to having a couple more wins on the board. Yeah, their season is not over by any stretch. They're still in the running for champs, but you got to pick up some points here if you're Minnesota Rocker. And I think if it's Carolina, you have a good opportunity to do so. Interested to see how this plays out.
Futures preview. So these are the numbers to win outright and to reach the final. So basically, Thieves are the favorite to win the tournament, followed closely by FaZe. So Thieves plus 137, FaZe plus 187, Ultra plus 450, Surge plus 650, and then you get to 12-1, 14-1, and then you go all the way down to LAG at 500-1. And then obviously to reach the final, the odds are mostly halved at that point for that line. Here's our numbers in comparison. So your number is actually you're very high on Thieves. You actually have Thieves as the favorite outright, like more than 50% of the time. I have them slightly under the market odds, but not that much. FaZe, I have FaZe. We both have FaZe under a bit. Me a little less than you, but again, it's notable that they're not the favorite and we have them even lower. But then after that's when we start taking a hacksaw to some of the other teams. Toronto, we're basically half of what they are. Vancouver, my model likes Vancouver. It thinks it's actually slightly undervalued, but not by much. But you actually have them way undervalued. You have them way undervalued on your number compared to the market. And then look at this. I love this next one. Optic. Look at that. It's not 0, but it's like 0.1. And their implied market odds is like, what, 10%? It's not even remotely close to what we have there. Same as Boston. We're a lot lower on Boston. Miami, I'm a bit higher on Miami than you, but we're both lower than market odds. And Carolina, we both randomly like Carolina, but then nothing on the other ones. Again, these are not great markets to bet on. The hold on these markets is insane. And you have to be really careful. You have to be really sure if you're going to bet on any of these teams, really. Because, like, again, you could have bet on Thieves. And the thing is, like, they lost round 1. And then, okay, they got back to Sunday. And they were basically steps away from getting back into the major final. But stuff happens, right? And this isn't like the NFL playoffs or something like that. There's not much. Like, one bad game, you could be put into the blender. And then it's a long slog back. And any small little mistake, you're done, right? So that's why these odds are generally horrible. That being said, though, if you go over to these odds, these are slightly better. You could see some value on Vancouver to make the final, especially in my model. You have some value on FaZe to make the final. But other than that, we don't really see much value here. Do you have any value on either of these two markets?
Thieves for both for me, not FaZe. But FaZe are close in the reach the final market. But yeah, I just want to take this time to talk about LA Thieves. They have not won a major so far this year. They have won one of the minors, for what that's worth. But I was just super, super impressed with their qualifier split these last few weeks. They obviously had that loss against Toronto Ultra, but that was very close. And then to 3-0, everybody else you play it doesn't get much better than that. And a lot of those were convincing 3-0s, like incredibly impressive. That's a big part of the number. With these to win outright markets, to reach the final market, the number one thing you should be concerned about is team strength. And LA Thieves right now, to me, are the best team in the league. And I don't think there's another team that's close to them at this point in time. So that's number one. Number two, their opening match. We just saw them play Carolina Royal Ravens. They steamrolled right by them. I honestly think my numbers are a little too high on Ravens to win the whole thing or reach the final. Now, the funny thing is, right, if you have to play Thieves, you'd like to play them right away in a best of 5, then later on in the tournament or in a best of 7 at the very end. So if Ravens were to win that opening series, then maybe something crazy could happen and they could go on a run. But all things considered, like, Thieves have by far the easiest opening match of Thursday. That hasn't meant a ton so far this year. The 1 seeds have fallen in their opening match at Major 1 and Major 2. This one, to me, feels different. The fact that we just saw it happen, Thieves are on a roll. They should be gigantic favorites to get past Ravens, and yeah, they should be in round 2 pretty easily. The other thing to consider is bracket configuration. So this is point 3 for me. To me, FaZe and Surge are probably the next best teams in the league. Like, who could feasibly take this thing down? Like, maybe the team that's already won 2 of these, and maybe the team that was runner-up at the last major that has been a completely different team since Major 1, and that's Vancouver Surge. The good news is, right, Thieves is on the opposite side of the bracket as both of those teams, and FaZe and Surge play each other in round 1, so one of those teams is immediately going down to the losers bracket, and that just clears the way for these other teams to come through in the winners bracket. So, Thieves, very strong, easy matchup in round 1. Their round 2 matchup could be a little tricky with Toronto or Miami, but I think they'll get past whoever that is. And then, the fact that just, like, you're sending one of those elite teams down to the losers bracket right away. You don't have to worry about them until probably Sunday. That's just huge, I think. So I think Thieves are at just a full... I was shocked when my model said, yeah, Thieves 52% to win the major. And then I looked deeper into the numbers and I thought, you know what? That kind of makes sense. I have them in the final 74% of the time. I have them as a 60-40 favorite over FaZe in a best of 5 or a best of 7. And that's the next closest team. Like, I just really like where Thieves are right now. I think this major is fun, though, because you can make a case for a lot of these teams. Like, your numbers are high on Surge. I completely get that. The one thing that's spooking me a little is just their opening match is really hard. Here's a 3 seed. Congratulations, Surge. You get to play Atlanta FaZe. That is rough. If they can get past that opening match on Thursday, then yeah, plus 650 looks incredible to win this whole thing. Like, they almost won Major 2. And the only team they lost to was the team that they're playing in round 1. I think you can make a great case for Boston. We talked about them and their series against Optic. Like, why do they have worse odds than Optic? I don't know. Also, they're on the opposite side of the bracket as Thieves, so they'll avoid them for a while. The round 2 matchup will be hard. Miami and Toronto, I think you can make a case for. I'd much prefer Miami at their price, 20-1 to win outright and 10-1 just to reach the final. Yeah, I think you can make a case for so many teams. I think this bracket is going to be a fun one to follow this weekend. But at the end of the day, if my model is pointing me in the direction of one of these favorites, and it is strongly doing so for LA Thieves, I just listen to that and go with it. So plus 137 doesn't seem like a great price, but just thinking like, if Thieves are there, if they're in the final, plus 137 is going to be a phenomenal price to have them at. And I know that's a leap of faith to put them in the final, but man, the way they're playing right now, I think they're really likely to make it. Yeah, I can't wait until Carolina come out and just slam them on Thursday, and I'm completely wrong.
And models versus markets, so here are our picks. So we've now changed them up from number 1 to gold, silver, and bronze. Gold, fittingly, has the plus 5.0 units. So for my plays of the week, we're going to go some hard point spreads. We're going to go Vancouver map 1 plus 14.5 versus FaZe. And then we're going to go Miami plus 17.5 versus Toronto. So we're doing those 2 hard point spreads. And then I'm going straight up Boston money line against Optic. What are your picks for this week?
Yeah, I've got a couple that line up very nicely with yours. I love Boston against Optic. I'm actually taking a minus 1.5 at plus 240. I think the money line price is totally fair as well. But yeah, Boston's hardpoint has been awesome. Their control has been awesome. Optic are somewhat lucky to make it into winner's bracket. So yeah, I think Boston can take care of business against Optic, and the price you get on that is amazing. I just talked about LA Thieves and how much I love them. They are hotter than hot right now. Their path to make it to the final is great, and plus 137 is a decent price. I'd love a plus 150, but plus 137 is pretty good as well, and I just think if there is a major where they can take it down, it is this one. And then, yeah, Vancouver Surge, I'm with you on that. Not the map 1 spread specifically, but to cover versus FaZe, I think is pretty likely. We've talked about FaZe's hardpoint for a while now. It's been a struggle for them, and I think Vancouver are a team that are very capable of winning 2 hardpoints against FaZe. So if they do that, that alone gets you the plus 1.5. But at the very least, I think they're good enough to take 1 hardpoint and then either of the search or control against FaZe. Wouldn't be shocked if they win that series either, but to me, the plus 1.5 at minus 138 is a little preferable to the money line at plus 200. So yeah, Boston, LA Thieves, and Vancouver for me.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of those make a lot of sense, and I like a lot of those plays as well. Combined model plays, again, a bit more difficult for us because it's just the 4 games that exist. We can't project 4 games that don't exist. But Carolina money line plus 2.5 map 1. Again, that's a bit of a combined model play, but I'd probably only maybe take a shot at the plus 2.5 there. They could win at 3-1. It's not insane. FaZe map 2, Vancouver map 1. We both really like Vancouver there in the hard point there against FaZe. Toronto moneyline map 2, map 3. Again, I think Miami can punch through in the hard point, but Toronto's going to be able to punch through a lot better in the search and the control. And then Boston moneyline plus 1.5 map 1, map 2 versus Optic. I really love that minus 1.5 play. That's a really fun play. I'm playing that one with you this weekend as well. Next podcast. So we'll be back. Actually, it's next week, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is it next week? It is next week. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's next week. Wait, no, Monday is the 28th.
Yeah,
There's only
next Thursday.
No, it's 2
Next Monday
Thursdays.
is the
28th.
wait. Yeah, and 29th Tuesday, 30th Wednesday, and the 1st is on Thursday.
Oh, it's 5-1. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. That's right. Americans, you put the month first.
Oh, did I mess that up?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Month.
yeah.
You did month, day, not day, month. Okay, that's why I was like 5-1. It's not.
I'll spell it out next time. I forget that a lot. I do that too with a lot of my tweets that I send out. I'll do match preview and then put the date in American form. And I realize, I guess, with a lot of people that looks funky. But yeah, May 1st. That's how you read it.
May 1st,
so,
yes, May 1st. So we will have that out for May 1st. Other than that, enjoy Major 3. Enjoy the NFL entry draft. That will also be fun on Thursday night. Hopefully all the games will be done on Thursday so we can do that, and then we can go watch Tennessee pick Cam Ward. And then obviously a whole full weekend of COD right after that. So for everybody, we will see you next week for Major 4 Week 1. Until then, have a good weekend, everybody, and see you later.